Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Hammer Productions night. Tonight, I will be reviewing The Vault of Horror from 1973. The Vault of Horror stars Daniel Massey, Terry Thomas, Kurt Jurgens, Michael Craig, Tom Baker, Anna Massey, Glynis Johns, Don Addams, Edward Judd, and Denholm Elliott. The Vault of Horror was directed by Roy Ward Baker. Now this one was written by Milton Subotsky, who was also the producer of the film. Now this one's kind of a sequel to a previous film that I did on this channel, Tales from the Crypt. And in case you're wondering, this is not a Hammer Productions film. This film was produced by their competitor at the time, Amicus Films, which at the beginning of Hammer Productions night, I said that it wouldn't always be a Hammer Film Productions film that might be reviewed. I might be reviewing Amicus films. I might be reviewing any films that might star any alumni from Hammer Productions. So this is my kind of second, but I did Tales from the Crypt before I started Hammer Productions night. But yeah, it was originally even going to be titled Tales from the Crypt 2. But they decided to go with the title of another EC horror comics at the time, The Vault of Horror. Which is ironic because this one, unlike Tales from the Crypt, which had many Vault of Horror actual stories in it, and it was Tales from the Crypt, this one has 4 tales from Tales from the Crypt and 1 from Shock Suspense Stories. So none of these are actually from the comic of its name, The Vault of Horror. This one I don't think is as good as Tales from the Crypt. I think all of the stories in Tales from the Crypt stood on their own and had really good plot points that kept you interested and made you remember it after it happened. Vault of Horror has a couple that are less memorable than others, at least for me. And on that subject, let's go into our first segment, which was Midnight Mass, which was from Tales from the Crypt, number 35. And this one just, it stars Daniel and Anna Massey. And it just happens. There's nothing in it. I mean, it has vampires in it. That's pretty cool. But it has nothing in it that makes it memorable after you've seen it. This is your initial setup. Whereas Tales from the Crypt had that kick-ass all through the house segment that set things in motion, and you knew what to expect going forward. You knew it was going to be damn good. This one, it's not a very good opener. But the next segment in the film, The Neat Job, which was from Shock Suspense Stories, number 1. This one was a much interesting and fun story. It starred Terry Thomas and Glynis Johns. And Terry Thomas has always been one of those British actors that any character he plays is very uppity, very stuck up, and he's just really good at playing those characters. And his character of Arthur Critchie is just a annoying shithead of a character that, you know, is constantly being a neat freak around his new wife, Glynis Johns Eleanor, and you are totally in her head feeling what she's feeling whenever she finally snaps on him. So that one was a very fun and interesting story for me, just because of the performances on it. I thought it was well done on that one. The next segment was This Trickle Kalia, which was from Tales from the Crypt, number 33. And this one's very well acted by Jurgens playing the character of Sebastian, and Don Addams playing his wife, Anise. And they plot to kill this female snake charmer, but she doesn't even have a snake. She's a snake charmer that uses the little flute, but instead of a snake, a rope comes out of it. And he's this magician, and he is so enthralled by this trick, and he wants it for himself. He offers to buy her out and, you know, figure out how to do the trick. And she refuses, and they end up killing her. And they steal the flute and the rope and everything and try and use the trick. But it backfires on them, of course. Great story, well acted, and very well put together on this one. This one really stood out for me as a great story in this. The next segment was Bargain in Death, which was from Tales from the Crypt, number 28. And this one, much like Midnight Mass, this one stars Michael Craig and Edward Judd, and it was a cool story at the start of it, because they have this thing where Michael Craig's character of Maitland is, you know, supposed to be doing this thing where he's being buried alive for this whatever reason. It's one of those weird comic book stories that whenever you put it into video, into live action, it just worked really well in the comic form, but it doesn't work in live action. But the buried alive part of it, it started out interesting in it, but and then they have the grave diggers dig him up and he's alive, and then it goes. The character of Michael Craig's main character of Maitland is a secondary character by the end of it, because, you know, and it could have been so much better than this. I do think that this one is a little bit better than Midnight Mass, though, which isn't saying too much on that one. But yeah, these are the two weakest of this film. And then we come to our fifth and final segment of the film, and that is Drawn and Quartered, which was from Tales from the Crypt, number 26. And this one is just awesome. It stars Tom Baker. Yes, Tom Baker, the in many people's minds, the definitive Doctor Who, especially for me. Growing up, Tom Baker was my Doctor Who. I loved him as Doctor Who. So him being in this was just awesome. And then his co-star is Denholm Elliott, and it's like, wow. And the story is just really cool with this. Tom Baker's character is an artist who is painting these paintings, and he's trying to get famous off of his artwork, and he thinks he does a great job, and he does do really good art as far as my humble opinion. But you know, the art people that like Denholm Elliott's character and other characters in the art area of the story are not impressed by his abilities. So he is shunned by them until he gets this way of painting, but whatever he paints, he can make it become a reality. Whatever he paints throughout the night, that becomes reality. So he ends up starting to paint the people who shunned him, and they start dying one by one. And it's such a really interesting, cool story. And that's one that goes from the comics and goes to the screen pretty well. But yeah, Vault of Horror is very interesting film. I think it would have been probably better had they brought back Freddie Francis, because I think Freddie Francis is a much better director than Roy Ward Baker. Either get him back to direct or get Terrence Fisher to direct. But my final score on The Vault of Horror from 1973, I'm going to give this film a 7.9 out of 10. It's not as good as Tales from the Crypt. And that is because it has some weaker segments. As I said, Tales from the Crypt, to me, even the weakest of the segments in that weren't bad, and they didn't make you go, I don't even remember that story now. You know, they were all memorable in their own way in it. And this one has some forgettable segments within it, and that's to be expected in most horror anthologies. You can't always do a Tales from the Crypt, and I guess Amicus learned that with this one. But what do you guys think? Have you seen The Vault of Horror? Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree? Let me know in those comments down below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. Anyway, hope you have enjoyed this Hammer Productions night that was more of an Amicus night. Hope you will join me tomorrow for another action movie night. Till then, thanks for watching.